Welcome to Echoes of the Past, where history isn't just old, it's oddly fascinating.
From forgotten facts to bizarre backstories, we dig into the dusty corners of time so
So you
you
don't
don't
have
have
to.
to.
I'm Jody Lynn, your amateur historian and full-time trivia hoarder.
And I'm Ephraim, here for the facts and the fun.
So let's rewind the clock and press play on the past. First of all, welcome back to Echoes of the Past, the podcast that peels back the layers of history to reveal the people, events, and ideas that shape the world we live in today.
In our last episode, we dug into the ruthless ambition of Cornelius Vanderbilt and the strategic dominance of John D. Rockefeller. Now we're stepping into the workshop of a man who didn't just build a business empire, he built the very road most of us drive on.
That's right. Today we're shifting gears, pun fully intended, as we take a deep dive into the life, mind, and legacy of Henry Ford.
From farm boy to industrial giant, Ford redefined what it meant to be American in the 20th century. He gave us the Model T, the moving assembly line, and a glimpse of the future, whether we were ready for it or not.
But he wasn't without controversy. His views and personal decisions cast long shadows across his accomplishments.
So buckle up. We're about to hit the road with the man who turned horsepower into a national obsession.
And stick around. After this journey through steel and rubber, we're heading back into dark territory next episode with a full exploration of paganism, its history, symbolism, and modern revival. But for now, let's crank the engine on Henry Ford. Henry Ford was born on July 30th, 1863 in Greenfield Township, Michigan, what's now part of Dearborn. The son of a prosperous farming family, Ford seemed destined for a life of plows and crops. But as he later said, I never had any particular love for the farm. It was the machines I loved. That love started early, when Ford was just 12. His father gave him a pocket watch. He promptly took it apart, reassembled it, and began offering free repairs to friends and neighbors. By his teens, he was the go-to mechanic in his community, fixing broken clocks and steam engines with ease. But Ford's curiosity didn't stop at the mechanical. It was philosophical, too. He believed deeply in the value of work, simplicity, and independence. Thinking is the hardest work there is, he would later write, which is probably the reason so few engage in it. Burn. In 1879, at just 16 years old, Ford left home for Detroit. He worked as an apprentice machinist, where he cut his teeth on industrial tools and engines, absorbing knowledge like oil into a gear. After a few years, he returned to the family farm, not to settle down, but to tinker. He built his first steam engine here and married Clara Bryant in 1888, a woman who would support his ambitions even when the world didn't. By the 1890s, Ford was working at Edison Illuminating Company in Detroit. It was here, under the electric glow of Thomas Edison's legacy, that Ford began constructing what he called his quadricycle, a self-propelled vehicle with 4 bicycle wheels and a gas engine. In 1896, he unveiled it. If I had asked people what they wanted, Ford famously quipped later, they would have said faster horses. It was the first glimpse of a revolution to come.
Henry Ford didn't just build cars, he built a belief system. To understand what drove Ford, you have to step into the mind of a man who saw innovation as a moral duty. He wasn't motivated purely by profit. At his core, Ford believed technology should have served the common person, not just the elite. He once said, there is joy in work, there is no happiness except in the realization that we have accomplished something. This wasn't just lip service. Ford believed a better life for workers would lead to a better product and a better society. In 1914, he shocked the industrial world by doubling the standard wage to $5 a day. A move that seemed absurd to business owners at the time, but it paid off. Employee turnover plummeted, productivity soared, and most importantly, workers could afford the very cars they were building. Ford's idealism, however, had sharp edges. He was a vocal pacifist, opposing U.S. involvement in World War I and even funding a peace ship to Europe. He also held a deep mistrust of banks and financiers, famously keeping the Ford Motor Company as privately controlled as possible to avoid outside influence. But not all of Ford's beliefs were aged well or were even acceptable in his own time. In the 1920s, he bought a local newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, and used it to spread the
massively anti-Semitic.
He didn't like the Jews. Anti-Semitic content. In publishing a series of essays under the title The International Jew. These writings were later compiled and distributed widely, even influencing Nazi propaganda in Germany. Ford later issued a public apology in 1927 under pressure from civil rights groups and lawsuits. but the damage to his reputation was lasting. It's a dark chapter in an otherwise towering legacy. It's important to note Ford's legacy is complex. He changed the world, but not always for the better. Like many historical giants, his impact was both inspiring and troubling. And that complexity only deepens as we shift from his ideas into what he actually built, with nuts, bolts, rubber, and revolution.
In 1903, Henry Ford was ready to turn his vision into reality. After two failed attempts at founding a car company, he launched the Ford Motor Company with the backing of 12 investors. But the idea wasn't just to build a car, it was to build the car. That car arrived in 1908. The Model T, affectionately called the Tin Lizzie, wasn't the first automobile on the market, but it was the first that the average American could realistically own. It was simple, sturdy, and reliable. Built to handle the rough, muddy roads of rural America, it ran on gasoline, kerosene, or even grain alcohol if needed. Ford famously said, "I will build a motor car for the great multitude. It will be so low in price that no man making a good salary will be unable to own one." And he kept that word.
Yeah, looking at cars now where they're like expensive as shit.
You could buy a small house with the price of some of these cars nowadays. Holy crap.
Oh shit.
Might not be a great house, but it's a house.
Yeah.
At launch, the Model T cost about $850. But over the years, as production methods improved, the price dropped. By the mid 1920s, it was down to about $260, making it truly accessible to the middle class. Ford had done what he promised, democratized the automobile. What is 260 from 1908 in today's money? He's going to look that up while I keep talking. But affordability wasn't just about pricing, it was about production. In 1913, Ford introduced something that would change manufacturing forever: the moving assembly line. Instead of workers moving from station to station, the car moved down a conveyor while each worker performed a single specific task. This sliced production time from over 12 hours per car to just 93 minutes. This wasn't just a leap forward, it was a launch into an entirely new industrial era. Ford didn't invent the assembly line, but he weaponized it. What's the amount?
So today it's $4,179.04.
Dang, a brand new car costing only $4,000. Damn. Okay, that's like one check, 1 month, like 1 month's pay for some people.
Yeah.
Not many people, but some people. the the ripple effects were enormous. Mass production became standard. Prices on goods dropped across industries. Urban economies boomed, and the 5-day, 40-hour work week was born. Yes, that was a Ford invention too. Sorry, guys. Ford even launched programs to educate his workers and offered English classes for immigrants. His ideal was a clean, self sufficient working class with moral values and stable family lives, though this came with intrusive oversight into employees' personal behavior enforced by the company's sociological department. So while Ford's innovations in manufacturing changed the world, they came bundled with a controlling vision of what that world should look like. And in the background of all this, a quieter, more complicated legacy, one tied to family, power, and the strain of passing the torch.
As Henry Ford's empire roared into dominance, he turned toward grooming a successor, his only son, Edsel Ford. But where Henry was rigid, mechanical, and fiercely controlling, Edsel was soft spoken, artistic, and a progressive in both design and philosophy. Edsel was named president of the Ford Motor Company in 1919, but in truth, he never had full control. Henry remained the true decision maker, often overriding his son's ideas or publicly belittling him. Their relationship was strained by Henry's unwillingness to let go of power, even as his son tried to modernize the company from within. Edsel had big ideas. He pushed for more refined car designs, including the sleek Lincoln line. He also wanted to expand globally and improve labor relations with the company. Unfortunately, his father resisted at nearly every turn. One of Edsel's most controversial efforts, developing a more advanced vehicle to compete with General Motors, was nearly sabotaged by Henry's refusal to support change. "Father made me feel like I was never good enough," Edsel is reported to have said in private, though he rarely spoke against his father publicly. Things worsened during the Great Depression and labor unrest in the 1930s. Henry Ford, already paranoid and stubborn, turned to thuggish methods to keep unions out, most infamously through his head of security, Harry Bennett, who enforced discipline with violence and intimidation. Edsel, appalled by these tactics, tried to advocate for a more peaceful and modern approach, but again his voice was drowned out. Despite it all, Edsel remained committed to the company and oversaw several design and marketing successes. But the toll of constant stress, internal conflict, and his father's looming shadow took a physical toll. In 1943, Edsel died of stomach cancer at just 49 years old.
Ooh.
His death devastated the company and ironically shook Henry into silence. For the rest of his life, the elder Ford reportedly never forgave himself for the way he had treated his son. He even tried to retake full control of the company afterward, but by then, time had caught up with him. Henry Ford built an empire, but it cost him his son, and for all his innovation, he never truly understood the cost of legacy. In the end, it would be Edsel's own son, Henry Ford II, nicknamed Hank the Deuce, who would eventually rescue the company from the brink during the post-war years. But that's a story for another episode. What we're left with is a dual legacy of Ford the innovator and Ford the father. One built a future, the other struggled to share it.
Before Henry Ford ever put rubber to road, others had already begun the race. The earliest gasoline-powered automobile is often credited to Carl Benz, who built his first three-wheeled car in Germany in 1885, nearly 2 decades before the Model T would roll out of Detroit. In the United States, the Duryea brothers built and sold the first American-made gas-powered vehicle in 1893, and by the early 1900s, the market was bustling with inventors and engineers trying to find the right way to build a car. What made Ford different wasn't innovation, it was scalability. Ford didn't invent the automobile. He figured out how to make it everyone's automobile. The introduction of the Model T changed not just American life, but the global economy. In 1920, about 8 million cars were registered in the United States. By 1930, that number had nearly tripled. Roads had to be built, cities expanded, suburbs were born. Gas stations, motels, roadside diners, drive-in theaters, all byproducts of the car age Ford helped ignite. But Ford wasn't the only player in the game for long. Companies like General Motors and Chrysler began offering more variety and stylistic appeal. In Europe, Mercedes-Benz and Renault pushed luxury and performance. Japan would later rise with brands like Toyota, reshaping ideas of reliability and efficiency. Ford's early dominance would be tested as innovation and competition went global. Yet, despite the challenges Ford Motor Company endured, from the Model A and the Ford V8 to the legendary Mustang and F-Series trucks, Ford continued to leave its mark on automotive history. But the company also weathered many storms, market crashes, wars, oil crisis, and shifting global politics. It even played a key role during World War II, producing tanks, planes, and military vehicles under the Willow Run plant, which at its peak churned out one B-24 bomber every hour. And today, despite fierce competition and an ever-evolving industry, Ford remains one of the most iconic names in the world. A symbol not just of automobiles, but of innovation, industry, and the double-edged nature of legacy. From farm boy to factory king, from handmade engines to AI-assisted design, Ford vision is still driving us 1 century later.
It's easy to see the names Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan, and Ford as ancient titans of a forgotten industrial age. But look closer, and their fingerprints are all over our world. Cornelius Vanderbilt laid the tracks, literally. His expansion of the railroad system didn't just connect cities, it connected commerce, communities, and cultures. The American economy was no longer regional, it became national. Today, our freight systems, shipping routes, and even logistics tech like Amazon and FedEx still operate on the foundation Vanderbilt built. John D. Rockefeller revolutionized the oil industry, and some argue capitalism itself. Standard Oil set the model for vertical integration, controlling everything from drilling to distribution. Modern energy plants like giants like ExxonMobil and Chevron are his direct descendants, and the regulatory environment we now take for granted. The very concept of antitrust laws was born in response to the sheer power of Rockefeller wielded. Andrew Carnegie gave us steel in the skyscraper age. His mills forged the literal backbone of American infrastructure, bridges, buildings, warships, and rail cars. But perhaps more importantly, Carnegie was the architect of a new kind of philanthropy, one where the wealthy were expected to give back on a massive scale. Libraries, universities, and concert halls across the U.S. bear his name, and the gospel of wealth still echoes in modern billionaires' pledges to donate their fortunes. J.P. Morgan, the banker among builders, didn't invent industry, but he stabilized it. When the economy teetered on the edge of collapse in 1907, it wasn't the government that stepped in, it was Morgan. He reorganized railroads, merged massive companies, and forced stability on chaotic markets. His legacy lives on in the framework of modern corporate finance and the very idea of the too big to fail institution.
We need another J.P. Morgan to come around.
And finally, Henry Ford. He didn't invent the car, but he made it American. His vision brought mobility to the masses and redefined work itself. The assembly line, the 40-hour work week, affordable consumer goods, those are all Ford's children. Today, as we moved into electric vehicles and autonomous cars, we're still navigating the roads he helped pave.
These men didn't just build companies, they built the very bones of modern America. They shaped how we work, how we move, how we earn, spend, and even how we dream.
Their contributions, often controversial, occasionally destructive, but undeniably foundational, are embedded in every highway, every high-rise, every bank, every oil field, every smartphone delivered overnight by a logistics system running on rails and wheels they imagined. To understand them is to understand the country they built. Not perfect men, but men who permanently shifted the course of history. As we step away from industry and empire in this series, we now turn to older, more shadowy paths, those carved by firelight and belief, by nature, blood, and myth.
Before we close out today's episode, let's take a quick pit stop to fuel up, literally.
Today's episode is powered by W Energy, the clean energy drink that keeps your brain running smoother than a Ford V8.
Whether you're researching the industrial titans of history or just trying to survive your 9 to 5, W gives you the focus and stamina without the crash, jitters, or mystery chemicals packed into most energy drinks.
Our current favorite, the Galaxy Grenade. Tart, crisp, and totally refreshing. Mix it up and you're good to go. Plus, it's sugar-free, keto-friendly, and made in the USA.
So, use our promo code Echoes of the Past at checkout to get 10% off your order at w.gg. That's ECHOESOFTHEPAST, no spaces, for 10% off at w.gg.
W, it's time to kickstart your mind and leave the sludge behind.
From the railroads and oil fields to steel mills and assembly lines, we followed the sparks of innovation that forged America that we live in today. But now it's time to turn off the machinery.
In our next episode, we're stepping off the pavement and into the woods, diving into something older, something primal.
We're going deep into the history of paganism, from ancient ritual practices and nature worship to modern neo-pagan revival. We'll explore how these belief systems survived, evolved, and were demonized. Oh yeah, they're getting paid. Demonized over time.
It's a journey through fire festivals, forgotten gods, misunderstood symbols, and spiritual traditions that have outlived empires.
You won't want to miss it.
Until then, keep asking questions, keep exploring the past. Thanks for wandering through history with us on Echoes of the Past.
If you liked what you heard, subscribe, rate us, and tell that one friend who still quotes fun facts at parties.
And remember, history may repeat itself,
but we promise not to.
See you in the next Echo.